Afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, a lovely audience that has gathered here today. Okay, I'm going to first begin by asking one of the key players, which is Uninor, right? On my right, I'm going to start with Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, now 4G is a very ambitious plan. There's a lot of excitement amongst the youth, especially when we speak of 4G, and also amongst telecom operators like you. You've been successful enough in bidding in 1800 megahertz spectrum, and you've been speaking of, Uninor has been speaking of certain narrow band trials, which were supposed to begin in Jan. Now, how successful really have these trials been so far if they have started? And if not, what are the challenges you're facing? Please go ahead.
We are an operator for the mass market. And we have really designed our products for the very basic voice and data. And in 2014, we started really looking into, by promoting data, with the very, very limited spectrum what we have. But what we have started seeing, actually the definition of the basic is changing. And especially in a country like India, where the contents are very, very rich, our subscribers who started their internet experience with WhatsApp and Facebook, they have started demanding a little better access into the data in terms of maybe video, in terms of music. Yes. So what we saw that there is a huge demand, but we don't have enough spectrum. So what we then started working with some of the leading players of the industry, that with the very limited spectrum what we have, can we have some sort of solution which can really help us address the immediate need for some time? And that is actually the narrowband LTE. Narrowband LTE is, it offers on 1.4 megahertz. What we have started doing, we have already gone through some trials with 1.4 in 1800 bands. And we have seen that, it works.
What are those challenges? Because if we heard the last round of panelists over here, they kept insisting on that there is no clear roadmap just as yet. We are not prepared. I want to understand, with you, there are multiple players right now in the market. It's already getting crowded. There are several players. Now, that also works as an advantage, really. But before we get into that aspect, what are those hurdles you've faced so far? And what is it that you'd like from the government and the ministries?
One part will be actually going into the, the user devices. So whenever actually we are also doing trials with narrowband LTE, the devices has to be working with that, right? We have to have really a backhaul which is IP capable, and where actually it will never be possible for Uninor to really create the ecosystem, and neither by any of the operators. So I think the industry really needs a much bigger cooperation in terms of really getting the backhaul prepared.
Absolutely.
For LTE.
And that's where I want to bring in Mr. Tyagi, the Executive Director of CDOT, that how can we see now the industry converge to implement this 4G technology? We're talking about upgrading our backhaul, the backbone infrastructure. How is it that we can see companies work together to bring down that sort of investment, that sort of upgradation we are looking at?
See, the backhaul, I would say predominantly it is industry. They have to share with each other. They have to demand that there has to be active sharing permitted by the government. They have to come out and then cooperate with each other in terms of having in one mall you want to put 20 of these boxes. Why should we have a different infrastructure altogether? Why can't we all come together? Today technology allows you to have a separate lambda, which is wavelength inside the fiber, to be dropped to each one of those. About 32 of those. Today, current technology allows you to have symmetrical 1 gigabit. So 1 gigabit, if you get, you have enough and more capacity there. But there has to be collective demand so that there is a scale which comes about. India can change the entire world, supply chain.
I've been lucky enough to use 4G when I was traveling abroad, and I loved the experience. But as of now, my mobile phone and my network provider is not being able to give me the maximum of 3G as well. And I'm sure most of the people in the audience will also agree with me that even 3G penetration is not complete. It's not being exploited. Leave alone 3G, there are some sort of problems with 2G as well. There are huge vacuums in 2G as well. So I want to understand from you, Mr. Sharma, what's the strategy we need to adopt to learn from 3G and 2G so that there is this smooth transition into 4G?
The issue is we have more number of operators, so the availability per operator comes down. We have less investment going into networks, into the capex side of operators for various reasons. If you talk to the government, they have one point of view. If you talk to the operators, they have one point of view. And I think both points are relevant from an individual's perspective. We estimate that there's roughly $45 billion of fresh investment required for us to achieve our broadband targets. That money will only come in if there is an investable case. And that will improve our experience around the 2G networks, around 3G and 4G. The case for that investment right now is not very clear. So government and industry have to come together to realize how we achieve low prices and investment and good customer experience at the same time.
Are we saying that 4G, for example, is initial stages will only work, let's say, in hubs, in hotspots, and that's the way to go ahead?
So initially, yes, it will be, everybody is actually testing the waters. All the service providers, they are not full-blown, they are not coming up with the LTE services. They are just testing the water. The prime reason, as everybody said, infrastructure is a problem. Nobody is having a complete infrastructure. So in fact, I would like to add to Mr. Tyagi's words that there is no, for us, or for the service providers, there is no reason to reinvent the things. We have enough infrastructure already in the industry. So if you see the four major service providers, national service providers, Railtel, Gailtel, PGCIL, BSNL, they have enough fiber already laid down in the country that if we utilize them effectively, efficiently, I think the backhauling system will already be taken care.
How are we going to deal with the Internet of Things?
Going forward, it is expected in the next 3 years, there will be approximately 1 trillion devices talking to each other. So you can see, the kind of traffic we'll have in days to come. And that's where the 4G going to help very, very strongly there.
Are we prepared for that? Because I highlighted issues of security. I highlighted issues of billing and charging. Is India really prepared? And that's where I want to bring in you.
The whole structure that is going along the world at this point in time is how do we actually create the security for IoT? Because I can blast a bomb anywhere I like if it is a free world and unchecked altogether by pressing a button from your mobile phone. Right. So the security becomes, that structure becomes a very important factor. In terms of all of us agreeing that they need to have a gateway architecture, they need to have service architecture, and there has to be defined rules how they're going to work together. That is the challenge that is there, but that's not unsurmountable.
On that note, we'll have to wrap it up. Mr. Mohammed, Mr. Tyagi, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Bhupender, thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for joining us on this discussion, and all of you for also listening in. Thanks a ton.